Oh, Newport, Rhode Island. It's one of my favorite cities in New England, Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
Love the boats, the seafood, the ocean. It's amazing here. But December, it's really not the ideal time to visit.
No, it's not. But December does mark a grim anniversary here in town.
It seems like we're always chasing dark events and horrible deaths, Jeff. What's up with that?
Well, this particular death, which took place on December 14th, 1878, is nothing to snicker at, Ray, because that's the day that 20-year-old Rosa Walker of Newport laughed herself to death. I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger, and welcome to episode 68 of the New England Legends podcast. If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
Thank you for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England, 1 week and one story at a time.
Did you know you can check out our entire archive of past episodes, plus see video clips from the New England Legends television series on Amazon Prime and PBS, and see photos related to just about every episode of our podcast, all for free, and it's on our website at ournewenglandlegends.com.
You know, Ray, I actually did know that.
Okay, I just wasted my breath then. By the way, you can subscribe to our show for free if you already don't. Do you?
I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And you can do it right from your smartphone. Find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. And do us a favor, post a review. That goes a long way in helping others find us.
It really does.
So, Jeff, someone laughed herself to death in Newport back in 1878?
If we're to believe a news article that published in like dozens of newspapers all around the country, then yes.
All right, I can't wait to hear how this happened.
It's Saturday, December 14th, 1878, in the town of Newport, Rhode Island. According to the article and the 1884 book, A System of Rhetoric by Charles William Bardeen, it was on that night that Joshua Walker, quote, a respectable colored man, decided to buy some pork for he and his new wife Rosa to have for dinner. Walker even went through the trouble to prepare the meat with a salty brine. So he rubs it down with salt. Then he pours the granules into the water so it can soak.
All right, I've done something similar with a turkey for Thanksgiving.
Right, brining meat is pretty common if you have the time to give it. But the problem occurs when Rosa walks into the kitchen to find her proud husband beaming over the meal he's preparing for them. She looks at the white crystal powder he's pouring into the water and realizes something. He grabbed the wrong jar. It's not salt. It's sugar.
What a bummer. I'm guessing that just might ruin dinner.
Well, not really. I mean, you could wash the sugar off easy enough. That wouldn't ruin the meal. But what happens next does ruin dinner for sure.
All right, what happened?
Well, the whole scene struck Rosa funny, and she started laughing.
Oh, no.
And laughing. And you know how sometimes laughter is contagious?
Of course.
Well, now she can't stop laughing. She's in hysterics. Tears are flying from her eyes as she laughs at the silliness of brining with sugar. And I'm sure Joshua is probably having a good laugh as well. But then Rosa starts gasping for air. Her eyes grow wide, and then she collapses to the floor. She's dead. Joshua runs to get help, but it's too late. Rosa is gone.
Dead from laughing?
That's how it would seem. And this story went the 1878 equivalent of viral. Here's a short clip that made it into papers across the nation.
December 16th, 1878, Newport, Rhode Island. Joshua Walker of Newport, Saturday night purchased a quantity of pork and taking it home proceeded to salt it down. His wife, soon after, discovered that he had been trying to make brine with white sugar. She was seized with a fit of laughter which continued for several minutes, when she suddenly expired. Mrs. Walker was only 20 years old and had been but recently married.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's kind of a crazy story. Do you think it really happened?
I think there's something to it. I mean, this article appeared in dozens of papers all across the nation, and police never suspected any foul play.
You know, I don't even know how I would hashtag an article like that. But still, I have questions.
I do too.
All right, my first question is, since we're in Newport, do you want to grab some food first? There's a great seafood restaurant right over there.
Yeah, I'd totally be down for that. I mean, considering we're in Rhode Island,
Right.
I'm totally up for some Rhode Island-style clam chowder.
I do like chowder, but I'm a purist.
Okay.
I'll only go for New England clam chowder.
Really? I mean, what's wrong with the clear broth? Maybe some bacon in there?
No. New England or nothing.
Okay.
Ooh, looking at the menu, we're in luck. They serve both kinds of chowder here.
Well, can we at least agree that Manhattan-style clam chowder with its tomato-based broth is just wrong?
Well, it's worse than wrong. It's an abomination.
I totally agree, Ray.
So, all right, laughing yourself to death. Could that even happen?
I'm also curious about that, so let's call a doctor.
Is this really his number?
I am Dr. Dan Steinhaus at St. Luke's Hospital, Mid-America Heart Institute. I'm a cardiac electrophysiologist in Kansas City.
Kansas City? Tell me you have some kind of New England connection, Dr. Dan.
Actually, I was born in Boston, and then I grew up mostly in Kansas City, and then moved back out to Boston for all of my sort of college and medical school and residency fellowship training.
Oh, okay. We're good then. So, Dr. Steinhaus, can a person laugh themselves to death?
I think it's possible to die from pretty much anything. You know, there are stories of people dying from laughter. There are a lot of things that could potentially cause that. I think it's possible, but extremely unlikely.
We do have to point out that we know pretty much nothing about Rosa Walker's medical history, just that she was 20 years old when she died. So we can only ask Dr. Steinhaus to speculate, but I am curious, what could possibly happen to cause a death from laughter?
First of all, so she's young, right? So you have to start with that fact. And most young people don't have a lot of cardiac issues or other major health problems. So let's assume for the moment that she wasn't particularly sick. And in that situation, the couple of things that could probably kill you in relation to laughter, one would be that you laugh and you choke and asphyxiate and that's how you die, basically just from hypoxia. So that you're just not getting any oxygen because you can't breathe.
All right, but that assumes maybe you were chewing something at the time, right? Or had something in your mouth, and then it got lodged in your throat, and the situation goes from funny to not funny that fast.
Another mechanism that I would think of that people could potentially die from, but it would be extremely rare. So they get sort of these sort of reflex syncope type events, or they get reflex cardiac events. And so that could be potentially something that kills people. The sort of classic one that's talked about is this sort of Belanger reflex.
So with a syncope event, we're talking about fainting, which happens when your blood pressure dips too low and not enough oxygen gets to the brain.
Right.
But as Dr. Steinhaus points out, you really don't die from fainting. Your breathing resets itself, blood gets back to your brain, and you regain consciousness. But the Belanger reflex, that's a little more complicated.
Your body has sort of two pedals. You've got a gas pedal and you've got a brake pedal. And the gas pedal is your adrenergic nervous system. That's your fight and flight system. The opposite of that, which is sort of the brake pedal in the body, is the vagal nervous system. And that's the rest and digest nervous system. But high input from the brake system or the vagal system can create low heart rates and low blood pressures. And so there are situations where people will pass out when they get this sort of a little bit of an imbalance between the gas pedal and the brake pedal. And often what ends up happening is you have a stimulus that makes you have high sort of gas pedal or sympathetic tone is what we call it, that makes your heart rate fast and your blood pressure elevated. And then you get a response from your body that says, oh, that's too much. So there are baroreceptors that live in the carotid arteries that can sense if your blood pressure is too high, and it says, oh, that's too high. I don't want to give that much blood pressure to your brain because you might have a stroke. Or there are receptors in the heart that can actually sense how much the heart's squeezing, if the heart walls are touching each other and things like that. There's sort of different receptors in different parts of the body that say, gosh, that's too much of that sympathetic or too much of the gas pedal tone. And you can get a slam on the brake pedal tone, where what can happen is you get your blood pressure basically goes to nothing and your heart rate might go to nothing.
But Dr. Steinhaus goes on to explain if your heart rate goes to nothing, in most cases, your body resets. The problem is this really doesn't kill people. The body's brake pedal releases and you start back up. Unless you have an unnaturally low heart rate, then you could go into a cardiac arrhythmia, and that could do you in. He explains.
After having a slow rhythm, you might have a very fast, life-threatening heart rhythm potentially that could potentially kill somebody. And that's sort of what I would suspect could have been the cause of that. That would be the most reasonable explanation of what happened.
So, should our legendary listeners lose any sleep over laughing themselves to death?
I wouldn't say it would be anything to worry about.
All right, then I have nothing to worry about, I guess. But as Dr. Steinhaus pointed out, just about anything can kill you.
Like clam chowder?
Yeah, that. But I think the bigger point is the glimpse into 1878.
What do you mean?
Well, you have this weird death of 20-year-old Rosa Walker. The last thing her husband knew is she was laughing, and then she was dead. It's tragic.
Yeah, you're right, it is. I mean, she was young and had her whole life in front of her.
But this article appeared in dozens of newspapers around the country, and even a book a few years later. It's like the whole nation was gawking at this tragedy.
You know, and it's no different today, is it?
Yeah, except now the story travels faster by the internet or 24/7 news channels.
140 years just isn't enough time for society to change, I guess.
In a way, it makes me feel better, but worse at the same time.
How so?
Well, it's easy to think of our great-great-grandparents as more noble people.
Okay.
They must have had more class and honor than we do today, right?
Well, yeah, I could see how we probably all think that society had their stuff together back then.
Yeah, but they didn't. They were just as messed up as we are now. I'm glad we talked about this. And decent chowder, too.
You want to hear a joke?
No.
There's so much weirdness out there. Stories like these and hearing from Dr. Steinhaus that, yes, although unlikely, a laughing fit could kill you just reinforces that the truth is so much stranger than fiction.
We'd like to thank all of our Patreon patrons who help make this show possible each week. If you'd like early access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes no one else gets to hear, check out patreon.com/New England Legends to find out more.
We'd like to thank Dr. Dan Steinhaus for joining us today on the phone, and would also like to thank Michael Legge and Lorna Nagara for lending their voice acting and, I guess, laughing talents this week. Our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember, the bizarre is closer than you think.